The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 of the election. They tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified Oversight Majority Staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration.
For President Obama, we might not have done the intelligence community assessment that we did that set off a whole sequence of events which are still unfolding today. President Obama is responsible for that, and it was he who tasked us to do that intelligence community assessment in the first place.
No one, especially the president, is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law. Oh, son of a bitch.
Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels. I'm joining you from Houston, Texas. Today is July 28th, 2025 at 12:12 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And I'd like to say hello to all of you wonderful people who have stuck around and hopped into my live stream when I don't even give you any kind of warning other than like an hour in advance. So, it's just kind of how I roll. And I want to do an Erik Carlson special. In the meantime, I want to let you know that we are having an amazing response to our free soap special at tulipblooms.shop. The products that we have will blow your mind. The Blue Calm, amazing face oil that takes away the red. It takes away any kind of angry inflammation. If you've got inflammation, if you've got redness of any kind, Blue Calm will change your face to the world. And you buy it, you get free artisan soap with every order. Same with Rainfall, same with Castor Blend. I think it's over there. All of these products, that's right, all of these products right now, free soap, tulipblooms.shop. Make sure to use promo code Shapiro to pry 10% from my grasping hands. Now, my friend Erik Carlson has been absolutely just crushing it, putting out pieces. And so we're going to start. I don't know if I did this one already. The Panic in Skywalkers, July 14th. Has it been that long since I've done anything? I don't think I did. Panic in Skywalkers. I must have done it. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. From ericc.substack.com, Tech Bros or Dr. Strangelove? Trump's role as a game manager by Erik Carlson. If you haven't seen the 1964 Stanley Kubrick masterpiece, Dr. Strangelove, you probably should. It satirizes the mass hysteria of the nuclear weapons race between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. The U.S. president has to manage his cabinet from generals who want to strike first to a former Nazi scientist who wants to allow the world to be destroyed while the important people go into underground bunkers to wait out the nuclear fallout. Dr. Strangelove believes they should get started immediately on repopulating the world. Beautiful women should be brought into the underground bunkers to breed with the powerful leaders and giants of industry. The women have to be beautiful, of course, to encourage the men to want to do their duty in keeping the species alive. We've all heard about the U.S. bringing Nazis to America following the end of World War II. It's called Operation Paperclip. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's 100% real. Former Nazis and Nazi scientists were brought into the CIA and famously put in charge of NASA. A side note, you never hear of the U.S. government bringing in Japanese doctors and scientists from Unit 731, the unit that did torture experiments on Chinese, Koreans, Filipinos before and during the war. Are we to believe that their techniques and bioweapons weren't seen as valuable to the U.S. government? But I digress. Back to the Nazis. We can all view bringing in Nazis to America and putting them in positions of power and influence as being the wrong thing to do. But until now, I've never really tried to think through the process of how they got to the place they ended up in the Nazi Party. What if it started off rather innocently? Is it a stretch to think the Nazi Party gave these scientists all the equipment, support, and funding that they could ever desire to pursue their life's work, their life's dreams? Did they believe they were doing good for their countries or for humanity? Were they propagandized into believing the world was out to destroy Germany and their work was paramount to their country's mere existence? Who knows? I certainly don't. What if things started off like a dream situation for these doctors and scientists? It wasn't until later that the Nazi officials started to turn the screws on them. It wasn't until later that they realized their work was being used or was going to be used for evil purposes. If you build a rocket and you think it's for space travel, you later find out that it's used for destruction. What do? Especially if you and your family are now being threatened to finish your work. Should they be given a second chance after being freed from their Nazi overlords? I don't know. I don't know how willing or unwilling each of these Nazi doctors and Nazi scientists were. What about the tech bros of today? Should they be trusted? Should Trump refuse to work with them, or should Trump use their skills, intellect, and ingenuity to make America better? I would argue that if Trump refused to work with the tech bros, which includes the crypto bros, America would fall behind, America would suffer, and America eventually would cease to exist. I believe Trump needs to work with these tech bros. I don't think he can trust them, but he must manage them the way a manager or head coach would manage a team of athletes. Without picking out one person, but rather speaking in general terms, I don't think most within the tech industry are driven by the goal of bettering humanity. They didn't ask for their first computer as a child with the goal and intention of making the world a better place to live. Most, if not all, are driven by curiosity. Some just want to make really cool things. Along the way, I'm sure many figure out they can make a lot of money and acquire a lot of power in the process. And none of this necessarily makes them bad people. My wife is one of those people who picks up on insincerity pretty quickly. She sees through people's agendas pretty fast. She's not going to accept the compliment of a con artist trying to sell her something on a street corner. She isn't going to get sucked into a conversation with someone who pretends to care how you're doing when they really just want to talk about themselves and all their problems. I, on the other hand, tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I do this to a fault. I sense the things my wife sees early on, but usually I continue listening until I'm fully convinced the person isn't sincere. In many cases, later I wish I could get that time back. I just finished listening to a 5-hour podcast with a giant of tech, cryptocurrency to be precise, for more than 3 hours. I found myself impressed with the breadth of his knowledge and curiosity. Then he went full nut job after he was asked a question about the afterlife. All of a sudden, he had no curiosity in the matter. Finally, a subject he wasn't curious about, even though throughout history it is the most curious subject ever to exist. The afterlife is a subject matter that he called a complete waste of time. He became vulgar in even talking about the subject. It was as if a switch had been flipped. This was a touchy subject. He seemed to despise Christianity and Christian faith, yet he wouldn't go so far as saying Christians are fools, because he understands most Americans consider themselves to be Christians. Quickly, he recovered and went back to using his nice voice. My wife would have picked up on his insincerity very early on, but for me, it took a while. But once I became convinced he was insincere, the insincerity in his voice began to drive me crazy. I couldn't not hear it anymore. It left me thinking he is not a person who I believe can be trusted. His technology may be valuable. His technology is probably necessary, but he needs to be managed. If you look into the giants of tech, one thing stands out. They're not Christians. In reality, I believe one of the driving forces in many of these people is their lack of faith, their disbelief in God and in an afterlife. I believe many are trying to create technology, whether medical technology or AI technology, that will allow them to live forever. Medical technology to prolong their time on Earth, or regenerative technology that would allow them to swap out and replace failing body parts and organs, essentially regenerating their bodies, possibly to live forever. If their bodies can't live forever, then plan B is to transfer their consciousness to AI. The fear of death with no afterlife is a pretty strong motivator. Where does this leave Trump? Think of Trump as the head coach of a football team consisting of athletes who all want to do something else. The defensive line wants to blitz the quarterback back on every play. The running backs want the team to run. The receivers want to pass. Trump is stuck trying to manage it all. The military wants to build up the defenses. The tech bros want unlimited energy to run their AI data centers. Wall Street banks want to be completely deregulated. Crypto bros want cryptocurrency to be the world's money. Nations want to be America's new best friend, yet no one wants to give up anything in the process. It's a challenge. Trump needs all of these players to play together as a team in order to make things work, in order to win. He has to keep everyone happy, or at the very least satisfied. He has to do all this, fully understanding that it's possible that none of them can be trusted. Trump could say, screw it, we're not going to try to keep up, it's too confusing and difficult. This attitude would result in America quickly falling behind and eventually imploding. He could say, full steam ahead. This attitude could lead to the same result, but rather than fizzling out, it would be more like going up in flames. There's a fine line between innovation and recklessness. It's a tightrope, and it has to be walked with focus and care. Back to the tech bros. As I said, the fear of death with no afterlife is a great motivator that can lead to ingenuity and technological progress. Just don't mistake that motivation with an undying desire to better humanity. Trump is tasked with managing egos as much as he is in charge of managing the U.S. budget. Getting to where we need to be is driven on a rocky road. Sometimes you may not prefer the song on the radio. Maybe you don't prefer the restaurant you stop off at to eat on this journey. In reality, he can't even trust anyone else to drive the car. Understand, Trump knows where he's going, and he knows how to get there. He isn't being fooled by anyone. He hasn't handed over the keys to anyone. He is in control. He needs the tech bros, and they need him. The difference is that he is the one in control, total and complete control. They are the chess pieces. He is the player. Whether you like them or not, whether you trust them or not, the tech bros are necessary if we want to take America to where it can be, to where it should be. I trust Trump's discernment to manage that process. That's right, guys. I'm reading some epic threads. I'd like to say hello to Mike Irons, the Lonely Proud, Full of Mary. Thank you all for saying something in chat. Really appreciate that. I want to thank all of you on X who are watching me right now, 145 of you. I'd like to thank the 3 of you who are watching on YouTube, even the 1 of you who is watching me on Twitch. Yes. And also, I got Facebook up. However, I don't think my settings. Yeah, Facebook puts me on private every single time, no matter how many times I tell it. I want all my live streams to be public. So there's that. So how can I edit the privacy? Manage video. This is so dumb. I don't even know how to boost live video, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. How do I change the privacy so that it remove module? I don't know how to use Facebook. Facebook sucks. All right. So nobody's watching on Facebook because it's set to private, and I don't know how to set it to unprivate, and I'm not going to waste y'all's time for even another second. Don't forget, free artisan soap with every single order at tulipblooms.shop. Go to tulipblooms.shop. Use promo code Shapiro for 10% off. A free soap with every single order. And don't you forget for a second, these are the things that are going to make your skin what it needs to be. Make your skin great again. tulipblooms.shop. And thank you for joining Spartan09, T. Gessner, Jax, and Wenlin123. Thank you so much, guys. All right, back to the brilliant Erik Carlson. This time, the red folder. From ericc.substack.com, the red folder, Kill Room, by Erik Carlson. Does anyone remember how the Trump family was parading around and passing around the red file or red folder on the morning of J6? They were all smiles and full of confidence. They were behaving as if Trump had just been determined the winner of the 2020 election. But it was the morning of J6, the day of infamy, when the media, the 3-letter agencies, and all the Dems and rhinos staged a violent and attempted overthrow of Congress. We all know it was fake. And the Trumps had to know they were just hours from it occurring, a staged event with the sole purpose of keeping Trump from rejecting the fraudulent election results. Trump denied the election results were legitimate, but he didn't do anything to stop Biden from being declared the winner. So, what is it about that red folder that had the Trumps and their team so enamored, so full of confidence, so full of joy? What did that folder hold? Did it hold the receipts for the election fraud that just occurred? If it did, why didn't they use it to overturn the election? Or maybe it contained something else, a list of names that most of us have never even heard of, a list of names the Trump allies were about to take out systematically, in many cases, without us even knowing it. Not the puppets, the puppet masters. Recently, I watched a pretty mediocre 2023 movie called The Kill Room. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad. I put off watching it quite a while because I assumed by the title that it was a violent action movie that I have to be in the right mood to enjoy. To my surprise, it ended up being more of a comedy. The premise of the movie is that a kind of buffoonish woman who is running a small and struggling art studio has an encounter with a money launderer, a man who launders money for an organization that is paid to facilitate hits on people. The head of the criminal organization hires hitmen from within the organization to take out people who others want dead, whatever their personal reasons. They are paying him to have people killed. The man laundering the money comes up with an idea, which isn't really a new concept only to him. He figures out they could launder the organization's money through purchasing art. Eventually, the woman running the art studio reluctantly agrees. He would buy art from her at an exaggerated price, and she would send him back the money. The money launderer decides it would be more profitable if he had someone make the art that he bought, increasing the amount of money he'd get back in return by not having to pay the artist for any of it. The money launderer has one of the hitmen from within the organization make art to launder. The hitman eventually starts making art out of the plastic grocery bags he uses to suffocate people to death, and the anonymous artist garners the name Bagman from the art world. Buzz on the street gets out on how much his art is being purchased for, and he quickly becomes a darling of the art world. His art becomes sought after by other art collectors. This isn't really that big of a stretch. In real life, millions of dollars were spent on an overly ripe banana duct taped to a wall. It really is this bad. In fact, it is said that modern art was created by the CIA to launder money, splatter some paint on a canvas, and sell it for millions of dollars. The worth of art is completely arbitrary. A perfect system to launder money. Most reading this probably remember that once Joe Biden became president of the United States, his son Hunter began selling art for $500,000 a pop. An obvious case of money laundering, or specifically pay for play. The irony, maybe an open nod to corruption, is the fact that Hunter wasn't even an artist before the Biden administration began. If I may go off on a bit of a tangent, what about social media? Is it being used to launder money? Is ad revenue, at least in some cases, exaggerated to launder money? I can't accept that many of the influencers on Instagram, X, and YouTube could really be bringing in the kind of money we are led to believe they are taking in. Yes, they're probably making a lot of money, but not at the level that's reported. There is no way. At least some of them have the number of followers they are reported to have, or the number of views, although algorithms can be used to increase their views and subscribers. How are they generating the income that pays them what they make? Most are followed by the least valuable demographic markets out there. OnlyFans, Instagram, YouTube. Sorry, I'm just not buying that many people will pay someone on an Instagram live stream to make a face or a sound. I get it. People are strange, and a fool and their money are soon parted. But it's beyond the point of believability in some cases, because enough people are perfectly willing to throw their money away. A cover is created to launder money. Back to the movie. In the movie Kill Room, there's a scene about an hour and 7 minutes into the movie. Yes, that's right. 1 and 7, 17. Eventually, the three people laundering the money, the hitman, avant-garde artist, the art studio owner, and the money launderer, try to figure out how to get out of this arrangement that is so beneficial to the organization with which they are laundering the money. The launderer suggests that they need to trade with something more valuable to be let out of the arrangement. The hitman says, "What about the red file?" The art dealer asks, "What is the red file?" The following is their conversation. "What's the red file?" The hitman says, "It's, unkillable people, sex traffickers, kingpins, people nobody can get to, but everyone wants taken out. Drug dealers, drug makers, politicians, or Wall Street, rich and powerful men who aren't exactly Boy Scouts, but people you don't know and people you don't want to know." The art dealer responds, "Truly horrific people?" All this in 1 minute of dialogue in a Hollywood movie, all in plain sight for all of us to see. the red file. The one part of the Trump sting operation most people aren't even talking about today, coming from a first-time screenwriter named Jonathan Jacobson, whom I will be keeping an eye on going forward. Anyone who doesn't believe we aren't being told the truth just isn't listening. We are being told constantly what is going on, but it's being told to us, and always has been told to us, in a manner where the teller, the person telling us, is protected. It's told in the guise of fiction, and specific names are left out. They have to be. If someone dished out the names of the real puppet masters in charge, well, then that person wouldn't survive the night. What I take from this is that red file or red folder holds the key to taking down the deep state cabal. We know the FBI later raided Trump's residence in Florida to recover classified documents. Were they, in fact, looking for that red file? They certainly didn't confiscate it, so it must still be in Trump's possession. Is that the reason for the judicial attacks and eventually attempted assassinations? Trump and his people haven't talked about that red file. They showed it off during the J6 party. Not a peep about it since. I can't get out of my head the sheer joy they displayed passing it around. And again, this was after the 2020 election, moments before the fake J6 insurrection, and 3 weeks before having to leave the White House. Where did their happiness and confidence come from? I believe it came from the fact that the deep state fell into their trap. They took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. It came from the understanding that the end was near, the game was over, the war was over, checkmate. It was just a matter of the opponent exhausting all their moves until there were no moves left to make. They have it all. And they've had it for quite some time. I want to talk about that red folder, guys. Don't forget, by the way, go to Erik C, ERIKC.substack.com. Erik is a great writer. He's my mom's favorite Substack, actually. And also, he started writing because he was watching Reading Epic Threads and just decided to start emailing me. And his emails got longer and longer, and I started reading them over and over again because they're worth reading. That's literally why he writes a Substack. So I'm kind of proud of that. Hello, Billy Bird. Hello, C. Campbell 78. Hello, Backdoor Biden. Hello, Gail Nybergall 61. Listening to me from Vancouver Island, Canada. I enjoy your show very much. Wishing you an awesome day. God bless. And God bless you right back. Blue Jaxes. Hi, Patrick and chat. How are you, Blue Jaxes? Artist X406. And of course, Richard Rohrer. Hey, Threadheads, can you do me a big favor? Richard Rohrer says we're only at 30% thumbs up. That's actually really good. 30% is actually pretty good. Not kidding. It's pretty good. We've got 184 watching on Rumble. Is there any way we can get a bunch of you to hit that thumbs up button right now? And if you can, just subscribe as well. There's a button that says follow. Hit that button. Dirk McGurkin. Nice to have you here, bro. All right. And also, if y'all could do me a big favor, go to tulipblooms.shop and buy something. You'll get a free soap out of it. I'm going to start pushing the just between us thread readers. I'm going to start pushing the colloidal silver more. I don't give the colloidal silver the love that it deserves. It's colloidal silver in humic and fulvic acid, with those things facilitating absorption more than anything else. So I'll be getting on that presently. Also, the recent special on zeolite extra spray. Oh man, it's gone freaking viral. We're about to run out of zeolite, so I got to figure out something pretty quick. All right, next, here we go from Erik C. ERIKC.substack.com. Imitation Game. It makes sense of our frustrations while explaining full control. By Erik Carlson. Imitation Game is a movie that came out in late 2014. I saw the movie in 2015, hadn't watched it again until just the other day. I enjoyed the movie the first time I saw it, albeit it gets a little preachy at the end, discussing how closeted homosexuals were forced to be in 1940s England, forced to stay in the closet. The movie kind of goes from an historical World War II thriller to propaganda for gay rights at the very end. I get it. Being gay back then was a crime. Homosexuals were treated badly. I tuned in to watch a movie about a code breaker in World War II, though. Having watched the movie again very recently, my understanding of the world is completely different than the first time I watched it 10 years ago. I say this all the time, but it is amazing to go back and rewatch movies that you first saw when you were asleep and then rewatching them after you've woken up. Your perspective is so different. You pick up on messaging that has been put into movies either to prepare us for future events or to explain to us how the world really works. Done in a way where a cover is created, plausible deniability, if you will, through fiction and art. Imitation Game is the story of a brilliant mathematician and his colleagues who are brought together by the British government to work on breaking Nazi codes that the Nazis decipher using a machine called Enigma. The Brits confiscate an Enigma machine from the Nazis, but they don't know how to use it to decode the messages they routinely and without clandestine means send out. Alan Turing, the mathematician heading the efforts, is an autistic gay man. Yes, that's right, an autistic gay man. Anyone who read my article about my family trip to New York City during the Pride Parade a couple of weeks ago knows I made the connection between autism and identifying as LGBTQ+. 35%, 3/8 of autistic people identify as being LGBTQ+. 15% of autistic people identify as trans. Alarmingly high rates compared to the non-autistic population. According to statistics, autistic people are 30 times more likely to be trans than non-autistic people. This is not the purpose of this article. Something else stands out. I believe we are being told in a non-direct way what is happening in this matrix-like existence we find ourselves living in. Spoiler alert. The British mathematicians crack the code. The Nazis are eventually defeated. This isn't to say that the war ended as soon as they cracked the code. It was the beginning of the end, though. The first code they cracked created a very dramatic situation. They discovered the Nazis were going to bomb a supply ship that one of the code breakers' older brothers was serving on. A dilemma was created. Do they tell the British military to warn the cargo ship, change the course of the ship, and possibly save 500 lives, including the code breaker's brother? They do this, it'll tip the Nazis off that their code system's been broken. The alternative, or non-action, is to let the people on the ship perish, which would keep their secret that they had broken the code intact. They decided not to warn anybody and allow them possibly to die. If they wanted the Nazis to believe their code system had not been broken, they'd need to pick and choose when to use the information that they gathered from breaking the codes. I suppose it'd be like a poker player knowing the cards the other players have in their hands and intentionally losing a hand here or there to keep them in the game, to take more of their money in the long run, playing the long game. How does this concept relate to the world today? consider the notion that the good guys have broken the codes of the deep state. They know what the deep state are going to do before the deep state even does it. But as was the case with the Nazis, if they simply thwarted everything the deep state did, the deep state would know that their lines of communication had been compromised. The concept of full control gets used quite a bit. What does it mean? Does it mean that every move the deep state makes will be countered? Does it mean every move could be countered? Does it mean every move the deep state makes is known before they make it? Whether a move is thwarted or not is determined by how it affects the big picture. If it's allowed to happen, will that allowing it to happen wake more people up? If the move is countered, will countering it cause the deep state to question the secrecy of their communications and the execution of their plans? It makes sense that if the good guys have been able to monitor all the things the deep state has been doing, not just recently, but possibly for decades, they wouldn't want to tip their hands before they have the people in place to make a truly permanent change. Yes, they could want to stop some things from happening, but they couldn't be too obvious about it. They couldn't stop everything. For example, did Trump's allies know of the deep state's plan to kill Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania? We've been told that Trump is completely protected and insulated. Being shot in the ear doesn't sound very protected, doesn't sound very insulated to me. Did they take out the shooter before he was able to shoot at Trump and they faked the ear injury while the Secret Service was piled on top of the shooter? If so, it will give me a lot more confidence in Trump, his people, and the plan. If that was the case, it worked beautifully. It played a huge role in getting Trump reelected. If Trump really was shot in the ear, then it becomes increasingly more difficult to have confidence in their plan. How could a bullet be allowed to graze his head? How could they possibly risk Trump being killed? Who would sign off on a plan that involved Trump's head being grazed by a sniper 100 yards away? The answer is no one. Either Trump's team is completely incompetent, or Butler didn't happen the way people think it happened. Not to say there wasn't an assassination attempt, just that it was halted in a way that kept Trump safe while still exposing that an assassination attempt was planned and attempted. The brilliant part is that Trump's opponents can't claim it was faked without looking like the crazy conspiracy theorists they make Trump and his supporters out to be. Whether you're willing to consider the assassination attempt being manipulated or not, there have to be other times when the deep state's terror has been stopped or minimized. There have to be times that the deep state have been allowed to follow through with terrorist acts in order to keep them from becoming suspicious. There has also to be times when it made the most sense to allow the deep state to follow through on their evil plans because it would wake up more people. I believe COVID is an example of this phenomenon. What is it that allows Trump and his allies to monitor the deep state and know what they were going to do before they did it? I think it involves Palantir technology, and I think it also involves deep state players who cut deals and became informants. The fact that America survived Biden's 4-year reign of terror leads me to believe the patriots were and are in full control. How can you be in full control if you don't know what your opponents are doing before they do it? Just as the Nazis fought in World War II, fully confident that their codes had not been broken, I believe that the deep state has operated the past 10 years or more with the same false understanding. When the Allies broke the Nazis' code, the war was essentially over as long as the Nazis didn't discover the code was broken. If the Nazis changed their code system, it would have been a huge blow to the Allies' efforts to end the war. I believe this has also been the case with the destruction of the deep state. Many people have asked, rightly so, if the Patriots are in full control and have been in full control, why have bad things continued to happen? Hopefully, this answers your question. In my opinion, it had to be this way. It had to be this way to get the full destruction of the deep state, not just a partial destruction from which they could eventually recover. They couldn't be tipped off that all of their plans had been known. All of their efforts could have been stopped. This would have been beneficial in the short run, but not in the long. The equivalent of winning the battle, but losing the war. It's not about winning the short game. It's about winning the long game. It's not about taking out the puppets. It's about taking out the puppet masters. It's about destroying the cabal for good. That's Erik Carlson, ERIKC.substack.com. ERIKC.substack.com. Red, White, True, thank you very much for being here. Zero Jabber, Zero Jaw Zero, thank you. We also have, let's see, I think I got everybody. Then all you new people in chat. All right. Let's see what some of these comments. We've got real comments here. Hit the thumbs up button, guys. All right. We're years ahead of the curve on Intel drops. So no 30% is slacking. You're talking about likes. Yeah, hit the thumbs up because Richard Rohr is getting mad at y'all for not hitting the thumbs up hard enough. So let's see how we're doing. Woohoo! 70 out of 210. Well, wow, this is crazy, guys. We're right at 30%. First of all, 30% is a damn fine number. But we can get to 40%. That'd be nice as well. I got on the leaderboard, y'all, on Rumble. It was largely because News Treason raided me, but I'll take it, you know. All right, let's rock and roll. We're going to finish up this show with the brilliant Erik Carlson, of course. Wow. We just got jars and labels for the satin balm. So we'll be shipping out tomorrow. Wow. Crazy times, y'all. I'm so excited about this. The satin balm, it's 2 ounces per jar. I've got satin balm, but we don't have, I've got, just a few. Woo! Christ Jesus Energetics on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here on YouTube. Anybody who's here on YouTube, man, YouTube did everything in their power to prevent that from happening. The satin balm contains bakuchi oil, which has the same basic benefits as retinol, but it's natural. Hey, Christ Jesus Energetics says rainfall is excellent. Rainfall is indeed excellent. And get any of these products at tulipblooms.shop and bam, free artisan soap until supplies of soap run out. So it's kind of a big deal. Now, let's finish up the show. Don't ever forget where all this wonderful material is coming from. It's coming from my friend Erik Carlson, who writes all this stuff. Right now, we're going to read Far Side of the Moon. Don't forget, go to ERIKC.substack.com. The Far Side of the Moon. Who is Telling the Truth? By Erik Carlson. This is not a hit piece on anyone or any concept. This is a legitimate question that has transpired from listening to the Sean Ryan podcast with guest Air Force Lieutenant General Steve Quast. Quast seems to be extremely knowledgeable and intelligent, and more importantly, sincere. I am not attacking him in any way. Steve Quast is a friend of mine also. This is me talking. Steve Quast came to Threadfest 2 and Every Gart. I am not creating division. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong. In my opinion, he's either telling the truth or just relaying the message the higher-ups want us to hear. Certain messaging is put out for a reason. Certain narratives are put out for a reason. Whether or not a narrative is true may or may not be the case. My point is that there is some information the white hats don't believe we are ready for, and some narratives are given to pacify us until we're ready for the full truth. This is a general statement, may or may not be the case with this subject matter. It seems pretty obvious to me that certain influencers and podcasters have been chosen to get information out to the general public before that information hits the news cycle. Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, and Sean Ryan seem to be three of these people. It's not a coincidence that a person or topic is discussed on one of their shows and 2 or 3 weeks later the subject matter is in the news cycle. An example. A few weeks before the floods in Texas, a cloud seeding CEO went on Sean Ryan's podcast to discuss the topic of cloud seeding. Immediately after the floods, it was discovered that cloud seeding had taken place in the flood area 2 days before the flooding started. I believe we are being prepared ahead of time so that when the topic hits the news cycle, we understand it better and recognize it for what it is. I've noticed in some cases these podcasters don't put their shows out in the order they are recorded. They hold some back and leapfrog them with another, as though they're strategically placing them in the proper time to come out 2 to 3 weeks before the subject matter becomes part of the news cycle. Before someone accuses me, I'm not making the argument that the earth is flat or that the earth is round. I'm not making the argument that space is real or that space is fake. What I find confusing in the interview with Sean Ryan and Lieutenant General Steve Quast is that Quast states the U.S. has no clue what is happening on the far side of the moon. He states that from Earth, we never see the far side of the moon. We only see one side as it orbits around the Earth. I get this. He said that the Chinese have been mining the far side of the moon for at least the past 2 years, and we know this only because we see them returning to Earth. But we never see them while they're on the far side of the moon. We have no idea what is happening or what kind of settlements or operations are there. I find this exceedingly difficult to believe. The narrative is that the U.S. landed men on the moon as far back as 1969. The first satellite to land on Mars occurred in 1976. In fact, multiple countries have sent dozens of unmanned spacecrafts to Mars yet. The U.S. has no satellites, unmanned or manned spacecrafts orbiting the moon to see what's on the other side. 50 plus years of space travel, and the U.S. isn't curious to see what's happening on the other side of the moon, or doesn't have the capability to get a look. Does anyone buy this? The Chinese are mining the far side of the moon and likely have settlements there, but the U.S. hasn't or can't orbit the moon to keep an eye on them. I don't know why this narrative is being served up to us, but I don't find it believable. Why the narrative? Is it to drum up support for the U.S. space program to compete with China by exaggerating China's capabilities? Or is it to hide the fact that the U.S. knows what's happening on the far side of the moon and possibly has men and stations there already? Whatever the reasoning for the narrative, again, it's not believable. I don't know why intelligent and discerning people are being fed a narrative that doesn't even pass the sniff test when being held at arm's length from your nose, or why respectable, qualified, good people are giving us this narrative. The whole U.S. space program narrative is hard enough to swallow. The narrative that the U.S. landed men on the moon in 1969, made multiple trips there in the following years, later forgot how to get back. We've been told we've lost the know-how to get back there, like we accidentally taped over the VCR cassette tape that had all the information necessary to get us there. I don't claim to know what the truth is, but it seems pretty obvious that we're being fed a narrative that is nowhere close to the truth. Why they're doing this, I don't know. But it's apparent that the truth is something they don't feel we can handle at this time. Seriously? Multiple countries can send spacecrafts to Mars, which is 127,943,020 miles away from Earth. But the U.S. can't get one to go around the moon, which is 238,856 miles away. The moon is 536 times closer than Mars, and the U.S. isn't orbiting the moon to see what's happening there. This is about as believable as saying the moon is made of cheese, and the Chinese are mining moon cheese. If the truth is that they just can't tell us what's happening on the other side of the moon, fine. They just say they can't tell us. It's classified. But don't insult our intelligence with the notion that they have spacecrafts on Mars, but they aren't monitoring the far side of the moon. It's like saying you've been to Australia, but you've never been to the town 5 miles away from your house because you don't have the technology to get there. Again, I am not attacking the messenger. I'm attacking the message that they are being told to deliver. It appears that even the good guys feel we aren't ready for the full truth. It's frustrating. It appears that the truth is likely one of two things. Either no one has ever been to the moon because it is impossible to go there, or the U.S. has stations and settlements on the far side of the moon, and it's happening there so that we won't be able to see it. Either they want us to believe they are capable of doing things they really can't do, or they want us to believe they are not capable of doing things they really are doing. I asked Google AI, has man ever been on the far side of the moon? This is its response. Quote, no. Humans have not walked on the far side of the moon, but they have flown over it, and China has landed a spacecraft there. While the Apollo missions orbited the moon and provided the first human views of the far side, they all landed on the near side due to communication challenges with Earth. China's Chang'e 4 mission in 2019 was the first to successfully land a spacecraft on the far side, according to the Davidson Institute for Science Education. According to Google AI, no man has walked on the far side of the moon, and the Apollo mission orbited the moon. This contradicts the statement that China has settlements on the far side of the moon and they are mining it. Grok essentially says the same thing. No human beings have been on the far side of the moon. China has sent an unmanned spacecraft there, and NASA orbited the moon in the Apollo days, but no human being has set foot on the far side of the moon. What gives? Who is telling us the truth? Assuming Quast is telling the truth, why would those who run the media's narratives want us to believe no man has been on the far side of the moon and NASA astronauts saw it while orbiting the moon back in the late 60s and 70s? Assuming the media is telling the truth, why does Quast want us to believe China is mining and settling the far side of the moon and that the American space program isn't even monitoring the far side of the moon? Someone's lying. If the media are telling the truth, then operations in space aren't that advanced. If Quast is telling the truth, it means the U.S. space program needs to catch up in a hurry to compete with China. Is Quast's narrative an attempt to encourage or scare Americans into supporting the advancement of the American space program? Nothing would surprise me. Propaganda isn't used only by bad guys. The bad guys use it to keep people asleep. The good guys use it to wake them up. Is Quast telling the truth, or is he telling a little white lie to put a spotlight on the space program? Whatever the case, whatever you choose to believe, I can only say that I believe that what we are being told is not the full truth, not just in this case, but in many subject matters. It's possible some of us are ready for the truth, but enough people aren't ready, which doesn't allow the full truth to be exposed at this time. Because of this, past narratives need to be kept alive for the time being. I look forward to the day when we can simply be told the truth, the complete truth. And those who struggle to handle it will be simply expected to do so. This time can't come soon enough. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the half-truths. Can we please just rip the Band-Aid off and deal with it? Or would the full truth being exposed all at once send too many into a tailspin from which they could never recover? And that, my friends, is my Erik Carlson extravaganza. M Penny 555, A Fritz 12345, Cray Cray 0 o'clock, Grammy 005. Nice to see you. Full of Mary. Nice to see you too. I'm the dude. What's up, Jax? Nice to see you. All right, y'all. This is kind of a nice chat you guys got going. So thanks for that. Furthermore, hook me up, guys. You got to hook me up. How do you got to hook me up? Hit that like button. I got my booty on the leaderboard this weekend. I think I did it 2 weeks in a row, 2 Saturdays in a row. I'm not expecting it on a weekday, but it sure would be nice. So hit that thumbs up for me. Share this video if you can. You know, why not? Ooh, Dirk McGurkin. I think quantum entanglement is 100% horseshit. Ergo, quantum computing is 100% horseshit as well. Quast was defending quantum computing. Instant credibility killer for me. But think about how many perfectly reasonable people think that quantum computing is real. Anyway, I don't want to, I'm not going to go after individuals, especially I consider General Quast to be a friend of mine. So I'm literally friends with General Quast and his wife. They're great people. So, I don't know what's true. I mean, I know that the moon is not a floating rock in the sky and that there is no mining the far side of the moon. I don't think that Quast is denying it, though. I don't think Quast is lying, though. I think he believes it's true, just like tons of people believe there's a far side of the moon. Jungle Rumble 714 says, expect the price of cheese to go down. Artist X406, we are non-rotating. Yeah, the Mickelson-Morley demonstration did that. All right, you wonderful people. Hook me up with your likes. Also, don't forget free soap with every order at tulipblooms.shop. This stuff is not purchased from a soap store. It's made by us. It's great soap. It's the only thing that goes on my skin. All right. I love all of you. Y'all are great. I'm going to try to do this again to catch up. Dawn Billy is going to be my next big read all of her pieces one right after the other. I'll just do that tomorrow. I got to start doing this more often. I love you people. It's freaking amazing. He's nice for a handler. Anyway, let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you tomorrow, I hope. Bye, guys.